What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences.
Good job there. Nice rock, high wing.
But more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends.
Like, dude, you're killing it. You're having a great day.
So just never give up.
Airport, and then, oh, by the way, I got carb ice while I was flying through, so the engine started running rough, and I had to
Join us tonight as we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I am Bryon Bowman, and this is SuperAero Live.
That's a lot. I mean, a lot of cookies. What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of SuperAero Live, and I see you in the chat. Thank you so much for waiting as our guest tonight and I, Justin and I, worked through some technical issues. The software I use was recently updated, and I wonder if that's the culprit. We couldn't get the synergy of the connection going. But anyway, you're all in the chat. You're all waiting patiently. Let's say hi to some people. Gary Smith is here. 782 Papa is here. Freedom Fixer Flying is also here. Great to see you. James Hyatt. He says, Ryan's on time tonight or late. Yeah, that's how it usually goes, but not usually that bad. Waukesha Pilot's here. Krueger, Clay's here. Jason Follas. Jason helping me out with some technical questions the other day. Really appreciate that. So Canyon K is here. Is my buddy Scarface here every week? It's my favorite name to see. Tyler Russell's here. The gang is all here. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for your patience. And before we get started, let's do a little bit of the housekeeping stuff. Don't forget, two things. One, like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. You know you got to do all that stuff. Patreon, if you're really into the show. We're on episode 74? What does it even say down there? I don't remember. It's been going a long time. If you've been watching that whole time and it's bringing some joy to your life, please consider joining the Patreon thing. We always do all sorts of fun Zoom calls after the show, just kind of hanging out till way, way too late. Or into the morning sometimes, talking airplanes. So that's one thing. Do that stuff. It's super, super helpful. Two, tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and I'm going down to Lakeland for the Central Florida Classic. I'm going to be announcing the National Stoll competition down there. They've got like a cars and planes thing at Lakeland. Andy from last week was talking about he's going to be running that show. And I'm excited to go down there. So if you're down in Florida Friday, Saturday for the finals, would love to see you. Come say hi. I can't always talk when I'm like actually announcing, but either during the breaks or before or after the show, would love to meet you. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Again, super excited tonight. We actually talked about this guy a little bit last week, but this is, and I actually almost met him at Lone Star Stoll. We were like in each other's orbit, but look, Justin Meaders is here and he's got airplanes behind him. How's it going, man?
Hey, everybody. Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for hanging with. So I got to ask, I see the race plane, which we're going to talk about behind you, but then something with flaperons. Is that like a Kit Fox wing?
Yeah, this Kit Fox that I'm working on.
See, it's me
Kit
nerding
Fox,
out a little bit.
5 that we're going to be playing with, and then the race plane's here, and right here is the laser, and then the Bonanza over there.
Dude, yeah, you got a packed hangar there. That's awesome.
Oh, we got room for more.
Okay, so when I'm looking for hangar space, I will come. I'll come down. Oh, Scarface says, "I am here." Good. All right. Great. If you're not here, Scarface, I'm going to be super bummed out. So Justin, you're kind of a big deal. I think, because this might be the first time we've had like a true. Well, I got to be careful because my friends from Stoll Drag have been on. They're another class at Reno, but right. Might have, like the first like what people think of as like traditional Reno racer might be the first one on the show. I think you're the first one on the show, so like that's a huge honor. Cool. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat about Reno.
Absolutely, yeah, I love to talk about any kind of flying.
So let's dig in a little bit. Before we get to Reno, I guess like I'd love to go back to just where aviation started for you. I mean, how did you find your wings?
I guess I fell in love as a kid. My dad he flew GA stuff, 172 mostly. The whole time he flew GA stuff, and then probably 5 or 6 years old the first time I got to go for a ride in his airplane, and then I think it was all over with after that. I was pretty much in love with it from then on. I think he wanted me not to do it, but it didn't work.
Okay, yeah, so you got into it, and I'm sorry I got distracted in the chat. Someone says, what about Elliot Seguin? He was on the show?
Yeah.
So, sorry,
Elliot.
Elliot.
He's a Reno pilot, yeah.
He's a Reno guy, Wasabi Knot lately. Different class.
He was Formula One. Well, he used to be Formula One, and now he's sport guy.
Oh, man, if Elliot's watching right now, I'm in so much trouble.
Hey, Elliot.
So you said you were joking just at the end there that your dad's like you didn't want you to get into it and you did it anyway. But what was what was the training like? Like what's like the beginning stuff for you? Like what did you train in, solos, all that stuff?
Right. 172 was what I did all my training. Well, I started in a Piper actually, and then moved over to a 172 and did the rest of my training. And then tail wheel training was in Super Decathlon and a Citabria. Get my tail wheel endorsement, and then high performance complex, all that.
And then went hard into it. Fun little fact is I grew up right by the American Champion factory, but I've never flown in a decathlon or Citabria yet. I got to get that. Oh man, I got to put that notch in my belt.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, they're great airplanes.
So talk to me a little bit then about let's talk a little bit about the transit. Like when did the transition to air racing happen? Because what you guys are doing in Formula One, what Elliot's doing in Formula One in the Class C's, what is he in, like Sport or Limited or something now? That flying is really hardcore. Like it's some of the only flying that makes me go whoo when I watch it, right? So like, how do you go from that trajectory? I don't want to call it standard, right? But like that's a trajectory a lot of people have, right? Where they're like they work up the ratings, they get more and more complex, higher performance. Right. When did you split off and start doing race stuff?
Well, I have been following Formula One since probably the late 90s or something. I loved it. It was just, the airplanes are really cool, and it's just, stick and rudder flying as close to, old school flying as you can get. You got to be able to, feel the airplane and all that kind of stuff. So I just fell in love with it a long time ago and started following it. And then I think in about 2014 or 15, I started kind of I think it was 14. I started getting serious about getting involved and meeting people, and then started building an airplane in 15, I think it was. And just went from there. Started getting introduced to people in the class, going to Reno, of course, meeting people. And got involved with the Goforths, who've been around air racing for a long time, and kind of started working with Philip Goforth and doing a bunch of training with him, and then building the airplane and more training. And then in 16, I went as a rookie to Reno to Powell Racing School and got my racing license and started racing in 16.
So it's been, so you're like, and this is something that I think I remember from talking to Elliot. Like this is like once you make the decision to go into Reno, like to me it seems like daunting, right? It's like this, like there's all this like crazy money and like it's the same way I feel interviewing you. Like I'm a little nervous, right? Like I'm interviewing you, like you're like a hardcore pilot, man. Like you're like gold at Reno, right? So it's like that. It feels like scary to like make that jump in, but then it's like you've got to like earn your way up and like level up and get to the point where you're competing and stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Like what is for people who are like, how do you even start? Because you said it so casually. You're like, oh yeah, I just like went and showed up and hung out, and then
no big deal. It does seem like a lot when you're getting into it. I think if I hadn't have flown as much as I did in the airplane, so in 2016 I borrowed an airplane. I had a friend of mine loaned an airplane to me, a Cassett Racer, a quad nickel number 45, and so Jay Jones, the guy that owned it, loaned me the airplane for Pollen Racing School and for Reno for that year. His daughter is a paracyclist. She's an amputee cyclist, and so she was going to Rio. Was that Rio in that year? I think it was. Yeah, it was Rio. And so he wasn't going to be able to attend Reno, so he loaned me his airplane for 2016. And I actually had to make the decision of either going to Rio myself as a triathlete on the U.S. team or going to Reno, and I chose Reno. So lots of training, modifying the airplane so that I could fly the airplane, and then a lot of formation flying, and then just flying the airplane. And then we took it out to Reno in June of 16, and did Pollen Racing School with it there. And then of course it's an intense training there. We did a cool arrival. We trailer the airplanes because they don't have the range to go that far. So we trailered airplanes up to Minden, Nevada, and then flew them over from there in a 4-ship over to Stead Field. It was a pretty cool arrival at the airport there, and then we did an overhead break and landed like we were somebody or something, and then had a good time landing, and then anyway started Pollen Racing School that way. It was pretty fun.
Would you, I guess, and you brought up a couple things we got to talk about in there, but I'm just curious about Pylon Racing School, for instance. So, like, what are other than, like, having a big chunk of confidence, like, what else, like, if I was, like, my goal is to go to Pylon Racing School, and obviously you've got a lot to sort out. You got to have an aircraft to race, you got to have a team to take care of you, like, there's all that stuff. But from the piloting standpoint, what are the requirements to start participating in that level?
It depends on the race class. Each race class has their own rules for minimums as far as time required before you can actually fly. Formula One is 500 hours minimum time, and then you have to have, I don't remember, 10 or 15 hours in that specific aircraft that you're going to race before you show up. And then you have to go through the ground training, and then you have to do check ride. Well, I think you could do the check ride later, but you do have to do a check ride to get your racing license. And you can't do anything until you have a racing license. So you have to go through all the full check ride on that. Formula One has a little bit different check ride than everybody else. You have to do you have to do an aborted takeoff, a normal takeoff, and in both of those, I think you only get 10 feet of lateral movement, left and right. You have to climb up to altitude. You have to do rolls, full roll to the left, a full roll to the right, and then a half roll in and a half roll back out. There's level laps on the course. And if it's a new airplane, you have to prove the airframe also. So you have to do a 6G pull on the airplane and show the G meter that indicates that you pulled 6Gs. And there's a few other things as far as speed tests, flutter tests, all that kind of stuff on the airplane. And then do a lot of laps on the course and learn how to get around the race course as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's something, people are razzing me in the chat. They're like, how could you forget Elliot? He's only in the intro of the show. Guys, take it easy on me. But I think
Elliot was actually the vice president when I started Formula One, and he actually took me on a fam ride, and I think that was in 15. So I went to PRS twice. The first year I went just to try to learn as much as I could. I knew I wasn't going to be able to race that year, but then went back at 16 for my rookie year. But Elliot took me in 15 and flew me. There was some issues getting in, being a paraplegic pilot. So anyway, Elliot was really cool about it and took me up in one of his airplanes, and we kind of flew not at course altitude. We didn't have permission to go on the course because there were some issues with me being a paraplegic. So we flew at probably, I don't know, 800 feet or something above the course, but we just orbited the course and he showed it to me, and then we came back in and landed and talked about it. But we got everything sorted out. It wasn't, it was just more of a paperwork issue than anything. But
sure,
they came back the next year and did my rookie year.
So, and that's the thing that we haven't even talked about yet, is that you're doing all of this as a paraplegic pilot. You talked about modifying the plane. We teased this a little bit last week, talking to Andy Ovens, because he had just recently done some work on the Zenith he built to make it for able flight and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that just, I don't even know where to start with that. Like, it's like a whole separate thing, right? It's like hard to know. Like, everyone in the chat is like, how are you even getting to do these hour requirements, these performance requirements? And then to add on top of that you're controlling the aircraft in like a different way to accommodate that. And you sent me some pictures and I haven't even shown them yet, but like, this is like a level on top. Here we go. Like, and I'm assuming this is part of you were talking about Rio. This photo here, like you said you were about to go to Rio to compete as a triathlete, and then you mean like the Olympics, right?
Paralympics, yeah.
And then you didn't do that to go to Reno.
Right. Yeah. Because
dude, that's hardcore, man. With tough choices.
So I was on the U.S. team for I think it was about 6 years, racing triathlons and all over the world. Had a good time doing it, world championships, all that kind of stuff. And then I could have gone to Rio with the U.S. team, but I decided the airplanes were more fun, so I went and did that. I
mean, I'm gonna say, like, it's clear that speed is your thing based on that photo.
Yeah, that's human-powered sports. You go sort of fast, but nothing like airplanes.
I don't know.
I actually have minutes here from racing motorcycles, so that's also pretty fast.
You're like that. I mean, you're not like as fast as airplanes, but I like how like close you are to the ground. I don't know, and then I think about people.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's like a lot of road rash. I mean, you're a motorcyclist, so anyway. All right, so let's go back to airplanes. So this is the airplane. Let's talk about the airplane for a second.
Okay.
Did you? So you said you borrowed someone's airplane to start and modified it so you could fly it. But then now the aircraft behind you, and I assume it's also the aircraft in this photo if I'm looking at the paint schemes. Did you build that from the ground up for you to compete in personally?
Yeah, it was built, from start to finish to be my airplane with all the provisions that I need to be able to fly it. It has no rudder pedals, no foot brakes, nothing like that, and it couldn't be flown by somebody who is able-bodied. I mean, unless they knew how to fly with hand controls, and I don't know anybody that does. So, not with the hand controls I have. And being a tail dragger, that adds another level of difficulty.
I mean, that adds a level of difficulty on a normal day. I'm curious about. I mean, when we were talking to Andy about this last week, people were very curious in the chat about like functionally how that works, and I don't know if it's interesting or not. If you want to talk about it or not, about like the thing that Andy was describing, that was the challenge, and I'm curious if you've addressed it in a different way in your aircraft. He was talking a lot about how, because you've got to move everything to hand controls, the issue is the throttle, like during landing, basically he was describing throttle control during landing when you're also trying to match your rudder and your ailerons is difficult. I don't know if is that still the case on like an F1 race plane or?
Absolutely. It's probably more of an issue with a tail dragger than it is with a tricycle gear. So in my airplane, I I have a left stick, which is my rudder. It functions a lot like his does in the Zenith. It's forward for right rudder, back for left rudder. I have a motorcycle-style twist throttle on the stick as well. And then on that stick, I have a left handbrake. And then on the center stick, which is pitch and roll, I have another brake on that stick, which is right brake. And then coming up out of the center of the rudder stick, I have a vertical mixture control that I can dial while I'm on the race course. So I kind of have sort of like the military version of a HOTAS with, hands-on throttle and everything all at once.
Oh, so that's I mean, sorry, just the engineering of that is really interesting to me too, right? It's because like you've got I think part of what Andy was talking about is like for his setup, and maybe it's because his is a 2-seat aircraft, right? But like getting the hand controls and the regular controls to like regular. I don't know if that's the right way to talk about it. This I don't know. Standard controls, yeah. Like if that get those to match up is also difficult, right? Because he can't necessarily like things have to like interact with each other. But so okay, I bet that. I mean, I was joking before when we started the show. You and I were joking. What is this photo? I think it's the thumbnail. Yeah, I was like, look at Top Gun over here. But like now with all this stuff all over your sticks, like true Top Gun, that's pretty cool.
It's a lot going on. It's definitely a lot going on with the airplane. So when you're taking off or landing, typically landing in this airplane, you're at idle a long time. It has such a slippery airplane that I'm usually slipping it on downwind, on base, and on final. So there's no throttle that's needed on landing. So at race altitude, which is about 50 feet, we do a zoom climb after the race, and then I'll zoom climb to pattern altitude at idle, and then I'll start my downwind with a slip usually to get the airplane to slow down, and then continue slipping almost all the way. Sometimes even level at the runway and still slipping to try to keep it or to get it slowed down. They just don't like to slow down. These airplanes are really slick.
I mean, just even that.
So there's a lot.
I was just say the shot of this wing is like it's pretty. It's like a sword.
Yeah, it's an elliptical wing and it's super efficient. It's a wing that was designed by Paulo Iskold, and I went out to Craig Cato's shop in California, and I lived with him for like 2 months, and we built that wing. It's an amazing wing. Paulo and Craig both designed the wing, and then I went out there and built it with Craig, and it's an amazing wing. It flies super nice, and it's super fast.
So, man, I have so many questions that we're just gonna bomb all over the place a little bit here, but like one of the things that you talked about the Casset earlier, that's like one of the aircraft that participates in Formula One. Is this based on that, or did you just like ground up design a new aircraft?
I didn't. So I have a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me that help me do this sort of thing. I don't want to rely on my own brain for all of this, but so I have what I call my brain trust. I've got all these guys that have helped me with all this stuff. So this aircraft is a very modified snowshoe. There's only one other snowshoe in the world, and it's not currently flying. So this is the only flying snowshoe in the world right now. There are several others being built, but this one currently is the only one flying.
And if we really want to nerd out for a second, Matt G in the chat is saying, I want to know how that wing stays together with no through spar and no struts. Is that?
It's got a tip-to-tip spar. It's all a one-piece wing. It's got rear spars that attach to the airframe, and then the airframe is the rear carry-through spar. But it's a very strong wing. It's a lot stronger than I can take. It'll take way more G's than I can. But it's a very, very strong wing. It's all carbon fiber spars, carbon fiber everything on the wing. The whole entire wing from tip to tip, paint, ailerons, everything is only 104 pounds, but it'll probably take 20 G's or something. It's crazy strong. Yeah, it's very, very strong.
So, okay, I want to talk more about your personal journey to the top here, but you sent me a video of like one of the test flights, and that might be kind of cool to show while we're talking about the airplane. So let me cue that up here. Talk me through, like, because obviously a single seat aircraft, you can't do a lot of practice with an instructor or anything to get like what was this? Oh wait, let me start it over here. Oh no, it's there. This is like you said this is like one of the first landings in it, test flight landings.
Yeah, this is probably flight 2 or 3 or something. This was just I stuck a GoPro on my helmet and shot some video while I was landing. But the touchdown speed is somewhere, I'm not looking at the airspeed indicator, but it's around 90 when you touch down. So it's a little faster than a lot of other airplanes, touchdown-wise. But the airplane is small and very quickly reacting to anything that you do. So it's, you have to be very paying close attention and be very much on top of the airplane the whole time. But it is a single-seat airplane. So the first time I flew the airplane was the first time I'd ever flown. And so you just basically have to go through, just like any other, test pilot stuff. You have to, slowly expand the envelope until you kind of know what the airplane will do, and find what kind of speeds you want to land at, and what kind of, speeds for taking off, and when you want to lift the tail and all that kind of stuff. It's just a process you have to go through that, which is what phase 1 of an experimental aircraft is for. Except for these are very experimental because no one else can go fly it and tell you what to do.
Right. I mean, I imagine, not to keep talking about Elliot, but just because he's the other shared language on this,
Sure.
I watched some of his stuff about like expanding the test card and like understanding, like, right. I think, and then you're here talking about like a carbon fiber wing that weighs like 100 pounds or whatever. Like that feels like a lot. That's a lot of envelope to expand given how far you're going to fly it in the race. So that's interesting to me. Like when I asked you earlier, maybe naively, I'm like, well, like, what's it take? Like, there's obviously like the training side that you talked about, like getting yourself there, like as a pilot, but then there's this whole like marriage of man and machine that is clearly like, I don't know, this sounds dumb. Didn't occur to me till now that like, you got to get your horse ready in a way that, and you're pushing the limits. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that sounds dumb that I didn't think of it till.
No, absolutely. You have to spend a lot of time. It took me about 3 years to build that airplane, and in the process of building that airplane, like I said, I flew the Cassett, which was race 45 quad nickel. That airplane was already established, so Jay, who was flying it before, he could tell me, this is what speed you want to fly, take off at, climb at this speed, final at this speed, touchdown at this speed, all those things, which makes it a lot easier to know what to do. But at the end of the day, when you get in the airplane, it's just you. So there's no one there to fix it if you screw something up. So you really have to be ready for that kind of stuff. The first flight of that airplane was actually pretty eventful of 45. So we did the test flights on the airplane with the hand controls and everything at Midland International out in West Texas. And so it's a fairly busy airport. They have a lot of Southwest traffic in and out of there, and some American Airlines traffic and stuff like that. And then a lot of GA traffic and a little bit of military traffic. So from the hangar that we were at to the runway we were going to take off from, we were going to do a 2-ship takeoff. And we taxi out, and it's a long ways over there. These airplanes are not really happy about being on the ground for a long time because they're very tightly cowled, and they don't cool that well on the ground. So the time we get over there, it's already pretty warm, and it's West Texas in the summertime, so it was probably already almost 100 degrees. We get over there to the run-up area. I do my run-up. Everything looks good. And we pull out onto the runway, and Philip, my buddy Philip Goforth, goes first. As soon as his wheels break ground, then I launch. And so I'm tracking down the runway. Everything's good. Perfect center line, maintaining center line, no deviation. I'm like, okay, I can handle this airplane. Lift off, get about 5 feet off the ground, engine quits. And I don't mean like bobbled. I mean it completely quit, prop stop.
Whoa.
And the last thing I heard before, or as I'm launching down the runway, is Southwest flight number whatever, line up and wait. So I'm thinking also, well, I got to learn to land the airplane right now. There's also 180 people on a Southwest airplane that are going to be real mad if I foul up this runway. so I get the airplane back to a good landing speed. It's a long runway at Midland. And I think I was about half runway whenever all this was happening. Got the airplane slowed down, touched down, everything was fine, rolled out fine. And then I'm thinking, I got to get off this runway because the Southwest flight behind me is going to be real upset if I'm stuck in the runway. So I made a high-speed turnoff, got off the runway. No issue, other than it was a little more eventful than I wanted for the first flight. But it was a very short first flight, so I got it out of the way real quick. Anyway, we got the issue with the airplane sorted out, and then I flew it again later that day, and no issues anymore after that. But it was an eventful first flight, but had to learn how to take off and land all at once.
No pressure.
No, not at all.
So some questions coming in about the aircraft still. One, okay. And I think this might just also relate back to, like, it's a purpose-built race plane, right? Like, no one's building planes like yours or like the Cassets or anything to, like, be a cross-country like, this is, like, that's what these are for. Someone was talking about, like, how much, you mentioned fuel earlier, like, how much fuel are you guys taking on into a race? Like, how much you're not taking that much with you, I'm assuming.
Right. So I have two fuel tanks. I have a fuel tank for test flying the airplane, which is about, I think it's 14 gallons, which is still not a lot of fuel. And then for our race tank, our minimum race fuel is 5 gallons. And then I usually take 6 gallons just because I'm happy to take the extra 6 pounds to have a little bit more fuel.
Sure.
So I run 6 gallons to start a race. And then I usually burn through about half of that during the race.
Okay, that was going to be a follow-up. Is like, how long's the race? That's super nice. I didn't look that up before we started talking. How long is the race?
Right, so it's technically 9 laps. So we all start on the runway together. There's 3 in the front row, 2 in the middle row, and then 3 in the back row. So it's a racehorse start. When they drop the flag, everybody launches. And then you immediately join the course and start racing around the course. So that first lap is a 0 lap. And then when you cross the start-finish line after you're airborne, then that starts the 8 laps of the race. So it's 9 laps, but it's 8 laps that are timed. And then so in that amount of time, I burn through half my fuel. And then I have the rest for, landing or diverting if anything were to happen or whatever.
Sure. Not that that's like a ton of fuel to like.
No, it's not. But these airplanes, pulled way back, are probably still, I could very economy cruise this airplane around at 4 gallons an hour if I had to, probably.
So one of the, I love the chat. We all want to know everything about the plane. What engine are you running in Formula One?
We everybody in Formula One has to run an 0200. So same thing that everybody flew on a 150 when they were training. But we make them, they have a lot more power. So the airplane has the Formula One has a very strict set of rules about the aircraft and about the engine.
That's the formula part of the name. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the formula for Formula One is it's a 500-pound airplane. It's got a fixed landing gear, fixed pitch propeller, 0200, and 66 square feet of wing. And then you have different rules, with it. So the engine has its own set of rules that you have to follow. It has to have basically a stock cam or stock compression ratio, things like that. But we turn the engine is typically turned 2700 or 2750 or whatever. And we turn them up to 4,500 RPM.
Woo.
So they're not, they don't last a long time at that RPM, but they make a lot more power. And then we can, we do a lot of things inside. We smooth everything up and balance everything, and then, the cylinders get ported and everything flows a lot better to turn that RPM, and then they make a lot more horsepower.
It's funny you mentioned they don't last that long, and almost simultaneously in the chat, Canyon K asks, TBO?
Yeah, we usually measure the TBO on a race engine in minutes.
I was gonna say, it's not a question of if it explodes, right?
Well, we hope they don't explode, but we definitely. So when I take I have a test engine, and then I have a race engine. And the race engine I do probably 5 hours on, maybe before Reno. And then when I get to Reno with it, race it, I do test flights in Reno, and then I do practice qualifying, heat races, and then the final race. And by the end, it's it's time to tear it down and look at it and see anything's damaged. Or now you don't have to do that. My engine has got everything done to it that you can do to one of these engines legally. And it would still run fine after that, but it's not going to make peak performance anymore. So we just tear it down and look at everything. They get really hot, so that causes things to wear a lot faster, and things to oval, things that are supposed to be round start ovaling, things like that. So they just don't last a long time.
782 Papa in the chat says, so okay, got it. Don't buy a used 0200 from a Formula One airplane.
Well, they're maintained very well, but don't buy one that's just finished a race.
There you go. So I mean, and I gotta say, just in case no one said it, it's a beautiful airplane. Just before we move on from it, it looks good.
Oh yeah, it's a slick looking airplane for sure. I love the look of it. It's my baby. I've got 3 years of my life involved in building it, and now, all these years of flying it now since 2018. January 2018 was the first time I flew it. So I've been getting to fly it for that amount of time, and it's a blast to fly. It's really a lot of fun to fly. They're very sensitive airplanes to fly. A lot of people like to call them twitchy, but I think I just call it responsive. I don't remember who said it, but it was a famous aviator, I believe, but I don't remember which one, said there are no twitchy airplanes, only twitchy pilots. So the airplane does exactly what you tell it to do immediately.
I'm just looking at it in awe. I mean, it looks good. I can tell that there's a lot of, we talked about the marriage of man and machine a little bit before, or I did, I don't know, but I can tell sure. There's obviously you spent a lot of time building it, and then to have it exactly how you want it, and also just so you can look super cool in it. Okay, so talk to me about this year, right? So this year was kind of a eventful year for you.
Right. Yeah.
So walk us. I don't know what the best way to talk about it is. I don't know if we should talk a little bit about just what is it like at Reno, or working up to the eventual finish, right? Where you're standing at the podium. How much of that? How confident are you going into the week? Are you man, this is the year, or is it there's so many variables at play, you're not sure how it's going to net out?
Yeah. There are always tons of variables. Who else is showing up? What else have they done to their aircraft? What's the weather going to do? What's your airplane going to do? How's the engine going to run? This year there was also a lot of fires. So, was the smoke going to shut anything down? Things like that. And then, there's also the chance that weather can shut us down. And then if you haven't, done what you need to do previously, then you might not get to race the final race, and then you might not win the overall, if you didn't do well enough in the previous races and heat races and qualifying and things like that. So we didn't get the race last year because of everything. Everything was shut down with COVID. So we had a lot more time to prepare, but then we had issues coming up, almost right up till Reno with the airplane that we were working through. Finally got all that worked out. Got some good test flights in on the airplane before we had to take it apart. And I was happy with everything, but really until you get there and get it on the race course, you really don't know what kind of times you're going to be able to put in to qualify, and then what you're going to be doing on the race course. You can have a pretty good idea, but unless you're actually turning fast laps on the race course, it doesn't matter. So
this is something I've always wondered is, as you're preparing to come to Reno, you talked about like test flying and then you got like your race engine, but are you like setting up like waypoints, and like cranking out like an imaginary course at home? Like how are you training and preparing for the race?
Yeah, I've got some spots on the airport here that. So this airplane, when I'm really running it hard, I don't leave the airport environment. I'm within guiding distance of the airport the whole time. These things are very high strung, and sometimes they decide they don't want to run anymore. So you want to be able to glide back. So I do have points on the airport that I can look at that kind of give me I do them at pattern altitude or even higher. So it's not super accurate at that altitude, but you can get an idea of what the airplane's going to do and what kind of speeds it'll hold, and testing propellers, and because we're fixed pitch propellers, so you really need to be you have to weigh the benefits of what the propeller is going to do in flight and as well as taking off. You could lose a race off the start if you're really having a propeller that doesn't pull good off the start. Usually the fast airplanes aren't the fastest one off the ground. They usually, wind up and then they start putting the speed down, and you can pass some, if one of the airplanes that starts faster gets in front of you, you hope that you have the speed to get around them. So you really have to balance everything with the propeller. So propeller selection is a huge part of what we do. And Cato propeller has really been really good with me as far as developing propellers that work well with my airplane. And with any Formula One, really, but we do a lot of testing with drag and different propellers, and different, 2-blade, 3-blade, different pitches, different lengths, all kinds of stuff. And I'm very fortunate to have the whole Cato family actually helping with that kind of stuff. It's a family business, and they're all. I've spent so much time with them down there, at their shop, building the wing, and then built the tail with them there, and lived there, and was there with them every day, doing that stuff. So I was very fortunate to be so well connected with them.
Yeah, when it was funny. I thought I misheard you at first. You're like, oh yeah, like saying with Cato. I was like, wait, same people? Same people.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through, I guess, what we're teeing up to, and I'll show you the video. Like, is like, where is it here? Got this kind of cool thing happened. Buttons. Oh, wrong buttons at the wrong time. Like, like that's pretty cool. Like, what was such a cool trophy? Not a lot of people have those. So talk to me about like the final race. Like, how did it go? What was it like? What was that experience like?
This year's final race was pretty crazy, actually. So we raced the gold races on Sunday. The final day, most of the gold races are on Sunday. So the race that was just before that, 4 hours, the biplane race was canceled because of wind. It was too, beyond their limits, their waiver limits for the racing with the FAA and everything. So we were thinking that we were going to get shut down as well. We towed out. We were going to have to do a 3-2 start, which we typically do a runway 8 start, but we were going to have to do a 3-2 start this time because of wind. So we tow out to 3-2, and we didn't do our pilot brief down there, and we're all talking about the wind, and I think it was blowing, 27 or something like that. It was pretty steep wind, stiff wind for our airplanes. We're a 500-pound airplane, and a 27-knot wind is a little crazy. But so we tow out. We talked about it. We decided to go ahead and line up on the runway in case the wind came within limits. I think 25 knots total is our limit, and we were at 27. But we decided to go ahead and line up, get ready, and in case the winds came down, because they only have to be below 25 when we launch. Once you're in there, you have to land. So we get out on the runway, and we run up get everything warmed up, run up, everything's good. And so I'm sitting there waiting on the start, and I'm indicating like 27 or 28, just sitting still. And it was a bit of a crosswind, so I don't know what the total wind was at that point. They have a wind indicator right there at the starter's truck. We have the guy with the flag in the back of a truck to start the race. And I'm looking at I'm just sitting there with my hands crossed, and it was kind of cold, and so I'm just the airplane's sitting there idling, and I'm like, okay, we're shutting down. Whatever, it's done. Nothing I can do about it. And so they have the red flag up, and then at 1 minute before the race starts, they usually bring the red flag down and the green flag comes up. And then when the race, is ready to start, they drop the green flag. So I see them start bringing the red flag down, and I'm like, well, that's a weird way to stop a race. Why would they bring that down to stop a race? And then they bring the green flag up, and I'm like, oh, I guess we're going to race. All right, here we go. So I have to put power into the airplane and make sure plugs are still clean and everything, if nothing's loaded up. And then I'm looking at the starter. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess we really are going to go. All right, okay. So then I got to get kind of set and check everything, make sure the fuel pump's on, all that kind of stuff real quick. And then here we go. We launch. And it was the roughest ride I've ever had in this airplane. It was so bumpy and just beating us around, and man, it was rough. But it ended up, being a good result. Ended up finishing first, and just had a clean race. I flew a very conservative race because I didn't want to cut any pylons. Just like turns around a point when you're flying anything else, the wind can blow you over your point, and it was blowing so hard that I didn't want to get blown over a pylon and have a pylon cut. So I was flying very conservative. It was still a fast race, but it was a beating on the race course. I have the hooker ratcheting aerobatic harness in the airplane, and I had it ratcheted as tight as I could get, and I still thought I was gonna break the canopy with my helmet. I hit it so many times.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That does sound intense. I mean, it's funny, right? Because I think for those of us on the ground, or at least those watching remotely, like, I don't think I think we just assume it's beautiful weather. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, oh yeah, like you don't have a lot of perception of like what's happening in those regards. And I, again, maybe a little naive, like I had never thought about in terms of Reno, what you just mentioned about like, well, hey, like I can't get blown over the pylon if the wind, like because am I right that there's like a judge like looking up through it or something? So like if they see you, minimum altitude is 50 feet, and then you also can't cut over the pylon. So if you go over the pylon, it's a penalty not only for cutting that pylon, but they also give you a time penalty for every lap of the race. So I think it's like 3 seconds for every lap of the race. So, I mean, basically you're done at that point. If you cut a pylon, there's no way you're going to win. I think it's 3 seconds per cut per lap. Whew.
So it's going to put you at the back probably, or somewhere quite a ways back. In this race, there was quite a bit of passing in that race. I think I passed, and some lap traffic and stuff too. So there was a lot of overtaking in the race for me. So you have a lot of other things other than just trying to control the airplane at 50 feet and not hit the ground, not hit a pylon, not cut a pylon, not hit any other airplanes. And it's like we call it uncooperative formation. Because usually when you're flying through the turn, you're kind of in formation with the other airplane, like you see in that picture right there. So you really have to be in that rough of air, in that kind of air, with the super turbulent air. You have to be really careful not to bump into anything.
I was gonna say, like 50 feet is not. I'm gonna be honest.
Right.
There's some days flying for me like the 50 feet, like I can't do that. Like I'm just thinking about like your private pilot, what is it, plus or minus 100 feet for private pilot? Like you're flying within that mark. Like anyway.
Yeah. No, yeah, you gotta be pretty much on your game there, especially flying around the other, any other aircraft. You have to, because we fly close to each other. We're within, I don't know, sometimes within 5 or 10 feet of the other airplanes. And obviously, because we fly so close, we have to trust each other. That everybody's going to be able to maintain their line and not do anything unpredictable.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other really interesting things to me about Reno in particular. I mean, not that we have a ton of, we don't have a ton of aviation motorsport. Like we're seeing a kind of a new resurgence of it right now. Case in point, like where we met the first time down at the National Stoll event, or what's happening with Stoll Drag. Like some of those Stoll things are starting to find that. But what's interesting to me is that although I think people don't I'm curious how this relates back to your motorcycle days. Like, I think a lot of people always think of like NASCAR, and it's like, well, Rubbin is racing, like we're just gonna like, but people are still working together collaboratively in like an automotive race to a certain extent, especially teams and stuff. But like,
sure.
The uncooperative formation side of it is interesting to me because there's a certain amount of cooperation just to be there and be like working together. But then hearing little tidbits about how you guys will actually like try to make the formation harder for the guy on the outside or the inside is interesting and kind of fun to learn about too. So I don't know. That's.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of aspect to it, as far as a lot of the different tricks and you can't intentionally block someone. You can't change lines mid-turn, things like that. That's going to cause anything to be dangerous. But you can certainly fly your own line, and they have to key off you just like anybody else flying formation. It's just the fact that I'm not telling you what I'm going to do. You have to kind of react to what I'm doing. Whereas formation flying, you've already briefed it. You know exactly what's going to happen, any of that kind of stuff in a typical formation flight. So it's a lot different. It's things happen a lot faster. But, I mean, you're on a race course, so you kind of know where you're going, of course.
Right.
You just have to see what that the other airplane is going to do. And if it's actually someone that you're battling against, it's going to be, they're going to be pretty predictable as far as what they're going to do in the turn and stuff like that. You just have to do what you can to get around them if you have the speed to do it. If it's lapping other aircraft, it's a different kind of technique. You can give them a little more room because you're not worried about the overtake speed, because obviously if you're lapping them, you have quite a bit of smash on them to get around. So you just have to it's a situational awareness. You have to really read the situation and do what is required to get the job done.
So a couple of last minute Reno questions, and we're gonna play a little game and then wrap it up for the night. I feel like we could probably talk about this for a whole nother hour if we're not careful. I have so many questions.
Sure, yeah.
Let's do the technical questions, and I have a more philosophical question. Let me see here in the chat. 72 Papa's asking about how do you think the airplane would fly without a canopy? I'm assuming he's referencing an incident that we saw a video of where someone did lose a canopy this year.
Yeah.
It looked quite dramatic.
Yeah, so that's my buddy Carl, actually. I actually worked on that airplane. They didn't get the front pin latched good on the runway before the takeoff, and it came loose and left the aircraft. Luckily, he was okay. But we've got to fix that airplane. It's actually here at the airport. Actually, no, it's at our shop. Actually, it's not here at the airport right now. But yeah, so I think my airplane would fly okay without the canopy on. There have been airplanes in the past that has taken, just takes the airplane down when it comes off. It takes the vertical off, or takes the horizontal off, or or the pilot can't see, and then they end up in the ground that way too. There have been a couple of successful landings afterwards after a canopy comes off, but it's usually a pretty scary, pretty crazy situation. My canopy is very secure, so I hope nothing like that would ever happen. But if it did, I think that I think it would still fly pretty well without one.
Yeah, because obviously there's the human factor, right? I think in that video we saw there's just like the shock of what's happening creates like a pilot-induced oscillation as he regains control. But then there's also the question of assuming no damage, like he was lucky enough there was no lifting body damage, or like it's like the increased drag, and then I don't know if on your aircraft, like there's some other smaller aircraft, like for instance like the Sonics I know they talk about, which is not a Reno plane, right? But like that it's a lifting body fuselage, it gets a certain amount of lift from the fuselage. Like is that also any factor in the F1 planes, or is it just purely would be an operation of drag? Like now we have this big flat slab.
It's the added load from the drag that you're getting in, because the air rushing inside the fuselage. Plus, there's different loads on the tail with all of that. With the air rushing into the fuselage. So it causes it to be a lot more tail sensitive at that point, or pitch sensitive. And then the other issue that Carl had is that he didn't have a visor, so that he was getting blasted with 200 miles an hour of wind right in his face. So he couldn't really see at first. It was just an instinct. Carl's a great pilot, and he instinctively, he felt the airplane going down, so he pulled and got the airplane going back up in an upward trajectory, and then kind of got recovered. And then I think the airplane was acting a lot different than normal. So it started down again, and he recovered again, and then got the airplane slowed down to where he could see, and recovered and came back around and landed. Beautiful landing. And I can't even imagine, you're still going 90 or whatever, and you're still having to squint probably trying to see the runway. And he just had it was a greaser landing. It was beautiful, his landing. So yeah, he did an awesome job getting it down. We were very happy to see him back on the ground safe.
Me too. I mean, obviously I watched it after the fact, but like after this show's done, if you guys want to see something crazy, there's actually like because there was a GoPro on the canopy, so when it departs, you see this like the GoPro's view of there's a lot of dramatic footage of it. Okay, other questions of people are talking a little bit. Two quick questions from Canyon K in the chat. He's wondering about do you have any support in your ear from your team? He's asking about a spotter in your ear, but I'm curious if there's any like coaching happening.
Nope, we're not allowed to have any contact with the ground. It's funny, actually, the announcers at the races will say something about spotters and crew chiefs and all that stuff. We're not allowed to talk to them in the air. The only time that we could do anything on the radio is if, like, you see smoke or fire or anything with another airplane, you can call that out and things like that. Or if you feel like they might hear you, you can tell another airplane that you're passing them or whatever. But typically, we don't even talk on the radio during the race. And then the only time we usually talk on the radio is after the race for the recovery. Most of us, or a lot of us, will go immediately to the downwind and start landing. So we call downwind a beam, and then we call base with gear, and we do a wing rock so we're more visible. And then we do our landings after that. And we do a hot side, cold side landing. So you land on the hot side of the runway and then transition to the cold side so you can turn off. And as soon as you've transitioned to the cold side, then the next airplane can touch down. So we can recover a lot of airplanes very quickly that way.
See, that's another thing I didn't know. I'm learning so much tonight. Okay, where was the other one I wanted to ask you about? Canyon K also was wondering about, is there any... So like automotive racing or motorcycle racing, there's a lot of aerodynamics applied. I think he's talking about like drafting and stuff. Saying as they're drafting, are you guys applying aerodynamic effects to each other as you're racing? Like, is that part of the equation at all, or is it just something you're in wakes and you have to deal with turbulence like that?
Being on a very lightweight airplane is very affected by the dirty air off of the airplane in front of you. So, I come from motorcycle racing background, so drafting is a huge thing in that. You definitely don't want to be nose to tail with another airplane in this kind of racing. It will be very disturbing. The prop wash and the dirty air off the airplane in front of you is really bad. It'll almost roll you inverted if you're not careful. So you usually want to be you want some nose to tail separation and usually offset from them. You really don't want any wing overlap at all, just in case anything happens with that airplane. You can go right by them without causing any sort of a collision. There's not really any that I'm aware of. There's not really any advantage to flying off of their wing as far as an aerodynamic advantage. And you're flying a little bit bigger course when you're flying off of their wing too. So you have to have a fairly decent amount of overtake speed to get around somebody. Because we're only allowed to pass on the outside. You can't pass on the inside, between that aircraft and the pylon, just because it's a very dangerous place to be if that airplane is trying to push down onto the pylon. So we pass on the outside, and you don't want. You have to have a fair amount of overtake to get around them, and so you don't want to be lined up behind them. You want to be trying to work the whole time to get around them.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So two last questions. We're going to play a game. One of them is, you talked a little bit about your motorcycle history. You just talked about it, drafting and stuff and motorcycling. Is there anything else from that motorcycle career that applies to, like, is racing in the end, if it's in the sky or on the, the ground or whatever? Or what else have you brought from motorcycle racing to it?
I think, being used to being in close proximity to something else going extremely fast is I did road racing, on a road race course, all over the country. But, so you're 180 or so miles an hour, within inches of another motorcycle. So being in very close proximity to other things going extremely fast, knowing how to manage energy through a turn, things like that really help, to have you turn in fast laps. You can't, airplane is just like anything else. If you put a lot of load on it, it's going to slow down. So if you manage the load, keep an even load on the airplane through the turn and things like that, it really helps to for energy management through the turn, so you're not scrubbing off a lot of speed, putting a lot of extra G that's not needed on the airplane. And then, just knowing what racing lines need to look like to get through a turn and maintain that radius all the way through the turn, and being able to see, things in a dynamic situation where, you're moving at a different speed than, the other aircraft or other motorcycles or whatever, closure speeds and having a good situational awareness. I think all of that stuff plays into it.
That all sounds like a lot of stuff that I don't know anything about. No, maybe like that. We were talking, right? Like, I think every year, like, Reno comes around, and because I'm like every predictable pilot, I get, I get the magazine. I got a stack of sport aviation magazines done. Like, that comes in, and you see the article about it, and it's like, man, maybe I should like get a cassette, and I should go do that. Yeah. And like the amount of I just think it's like a level set, right? It's like the amount of work and learning to be safe. Hearing you talk about it is like not overwhelming, but like super interesting. It's like a good point to like, this is like a real professional thing here. It's not just something you can like hop in and go win gold, like the famous Justin Meaders.
Well, so in in all the racing classes, as well as stoll drags, you have your bronze, your silver, and your gold. And so you could get into a bronze class in a much, a airplane that doesn't go as fast. That's it's easier to manage on the race course. The engine is not overhauled in after 5 or 6 hours. Those engines last a lot longer. They're not turning them nearly as hard as we do in the gold. So there's a lot of different layers and levels and places that you can be inside the races. You don't have to be trying to win the gold. We win the bronze, win the silver, whatever, or the very last guy in the bronze is still having a great time and having a fun time at Reno. You're still out there, turning laps and having fun. It just really depends on what you want your experience to be at Reno, as to how much you have to do. I mean, obviously, you have to be a good pilot. You have to be able to be safe on the race course and train to do it. But there's a lot of different levels to it.
No, that's a good point. I mean, we talk at Lone Star Stoll, where we were last together. I think there was someone in like a Cessna Aerobat, which is not like a necessarily.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was. Yeah, I forgot about that.
That's not like an aircraft you would think to be like competitive in Stoll. And that, well, one, he actually was competitive, but two, like he was just that. There's a guy that flies to almost every single one, like or at least the ones on the, that near. I think he came to Louisiana and to Texas. He's flying like a Cherokee 140, like.
Right. Yeah, and he was doing pretty good in the Cherokee.
And that's like not a like he's just there to have fun. Last kind of philosophical question. I guess the question I have for you is obviously a lot of hard work. Obviously, we talked about overcoming the physical challenge stuff, which sounds like almost like hearing you talk about it sounds like almost like a non-issue. You're like, I just put the shit in the. Oh, I swore on the stream. I just put the stuff in the plane. Beep. Right. That's like the third time I did it. I just put the stuff in the plane and then it works for me, right? But I'm wondering about like to me, for instance, like I'm a 250-hour private pilot, or people watching, kids now that their parents are plugging their ears, that are watching, people who are aviation enthusiasts or getting in their training. I'm curious if you have any advice for them, just in terms of like pilot, like what can we bring from your experience into our own flying? What's one piece of advice you'd have for us as pilots, someone who's done all the race flying and everything?
I mean, I think with any airplane and anything you're going to do with an airplane is you need to fly the airplane as much as possible. Be in the airplane, learn the airplane, every noise, every squeak, everything that the airplane does, every weird thing, every cool thing that it does. Just test everything about the airplane, but also put a ton of time into it. There is no replacement for seat time in an airplane. You just know the airplane better. You know what it'll do. You know what it won't do. Things like, just that kind of thing. You just really have to fly and fly and fly. A lot of people are very natural, gifted pilots that just, that can do it without issue. But I would, even those pilots still need to fly a bunch. And plus, it's just fun to go fly your airplane. Just have a good time flying your airplane. But I really think that's the biggest thing to being able to do this kind of stuff, is just flying as much as possible in the airplane that you want to compete in. And flying any aircraft is going to help, but especially the airplane that you want to compete in.
Yeah, and that is interesting that you say that, because I feel like that feedback has I'm in shock from all the profanity. I just slipped. It's been twice in 74 episodes, guys, have I sworn on the show, and I regret them both. So anyway, sorry. One of the things that you brought up that it's interesting, I hear a lot of people talking about that common idea of proficiency and like putting in the time, like that. It's obviously a huge piece of it. All right. We're a little over time. I want to play a game with you real quick. Are you game to play a game?
Yeah. Can I tell you also one other thing is I'm going to be joining you guys in the stall stuff pretty soon. I'm building a Highlander that's very similar to what Steve Henry has.
Rock on.
Yeah. So it's going to be the crazy Yamaha powered with turbo and all that stuff. It's going to be a fun one. And then this Kit Fox that you see sitting here is going to be once I get it all finished. Until the Highlander is finished, I'll be playing with this airplane too. So I'll be coming out to play and do some STOL competition stuff too.
That's awesome. It's gonna be, what's interesting. I want to, once you start competing there, you got to promise you come back on the show and we can compare and contrast. Because you're talking about like the two totally opposite sides of the envelope.
Very different.
That is super, super cool. That is super cool. All right, let's play a game real quick before we wrap it up for the night. And thanks everyone for the chat was like not totally working, and now it's working again on my screen, and everyone's like chiming in. It's working. Anitra is here. She says hello, and she says for that reason she can never be on the show. The profanity thing.
Oh, terrible.
All right, so the game's called Short Final. We're just gonna put a minute on the clock. I'm just gonna rattle off a couple last minute questions. No wrong answers, no points. You've already won or lost, whatever you decide.
All right.
We'll crank it out here. All right, get my dramatic music on. All right, Justin, I gotta know first and foremost, favorite airplane you've ever flown in.
Oh, my race plane, absolutely. Love it.
You had to answer that, right? What about favorite airport you've ever landed at?
Oh, favorite landed at? Man, that's a tough one. I don't know. It's pretty cool arriving at Stead in Reno. That's a fun one with all the atmosphere and everything's going on there. That's a pretty fun one to land at.
I'm gonna get. People are already asking in the chat. I got to ask you about when you navigate north up or track up on the GPS.
Track up.
See, it's every different every week. Awesome. Okay, last but maybe not least, if you could fly any plane you haven't flown yet, what would it be?
Ooh. Can we bring the SR-71 out of retirement?
That would be dope.
I would love to fly that.
I don't know if it could turn tight enough. I don't know if it could turn tight enough at Reno, though.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. We could just do a around the world thing, something real quick.
I love it, dude. Justin, I'm so happy that we got to chat.
Me too.
I said to you, and I will say it publicly too. Like, we were like ships in the night, kind of like didn't really get introduced too much at Lone Star, and I was like just regretting it so much. And it's just so good to spend the night talking to you tonight and get to know you. And I'm sure we'll run into each other again with the STOL stuff and all that jazz. So it's just, I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you to you and everyone at home for powering through the technical issue we had at the top of the show. That's always frustrating when it happens. So thanks for sticking through with that too.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was a good time. It was fun.
Before we sign off, is there anywhere people should look to keep tabs on what you're doing?
Yeah, I have Instagram, Limitless Air Racing on Instagram, and then the same on Facebook. Post pretty much the same thing on either one, so either place if they want to go check stuff out.
Rock on. I think I've got the Instagram link in the comments below us right now, so people can click through and check that out. Yeah, man, what I learned, I don't know if it's these episodes where we talked, like, I just learned so much tonight. We got to do another one where you like just show us the entire, well, you can't show us. You're going to show us all your secrets, right? You got to keep some of it. You got to keep some of it. Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for having out another Wednesday. I say this every week. It's one of my favorite nights of the week, hanging out with all my Sky fam. If you're in Lakeland, come say hello. It's going to be, I got to say, it's going to be pretty intense because there's a little bit of shakeup with who's going to be attending. So it could be anyone's race. And yeah, guys, now I'm going to go spend the next week shopping for a cassette on Barnstormers for sure. I see that. You guys are right. All right, everybody. We will see you next week on SuperAero Live. Fly safe.